You probably think you know the story of the deep sea. You've seen the videos of bizarre creatures living in the darkest depths, glowing jellyfish, spooky squid, and fish with teeth as big as your hand. And you've even heard the stats about how little we've explored it, and how much of it is basically a mystery. But are these the real stats? Is the deep sea really as mysterious as they say? Well, the answer depends on what you mean by the word mysterious. Because while it's true that we haven't explored much of the deep sea, that doesn't necessarily mean it's full of unknown creatures and unfathomable mysteries. Mysterious implies magic or miracles. But the truth about the deep sea is that it's not magical. It's just extreme. The conditions in the deep sea are just so harsh that most life can't handle them. It's not because there's magic, but because of physics. Take the depths, for example. People love to talk about how the deepest parts of the ocean are nearly 11,000 meters deep. That is very deep. But this isn't really mysterious. It's just math. We know exactly why the ocean is that deep. It's because the Earth has a giant crack in it that goes from the Atlantic all the way to the Pacific. And this crack keeps getting bigger, so the ocean just sort of collapsed into it. We also know how the water got down there. It was dragged down by rocks and dirt that were falling from the surface. That's not mysterious. It's erosion. We can also explain pretty well why there aren't any giant squid or octopi down there. Sure, there are animals that hang out in the deepest parts of the ocean, but they're mostly tiny, like this shrimp-like crustacean called an amphipod. There are a few small fish too, but giant mythical monsters. Nope. That S because the water at those depths is way too cold, and there's way too much pressure for anything big to live there. We can actually calculate exactly how much pressure there would be at the bottom of the ocean using the math developed by famed physicist Isaac Newton. And if you use that math, you find that it would take an animal with the strength of several blue whales just to stand up under that pressure. So no giant squid. Not mysterious, just physics. And it's the same deal with the famous alleged 20,000 unexplored species in the deep sea. Sure, there are lots of species down there that we haven't identified yet. But 20,000 is a wild exaggeration. In fact, scientists have a pretty good idea of how many there are. That's because while we may not know what every single species looks like, we do know what their DNA looks like. And thanks to genetic sequencing, we've actually been able to identify hundreds of new species of deep-sea critters without ever having to lay eyes on them. So where does this leave us? Well, it means that the deep sea is not a realm of magic and mystery. It's a realm of extreme conditions. While we may not have explored much of it, that's because our technology hasn't advanced enough to explore it, not because it's cursed or protected by magic. In other words, the real story of the deep sea is not that mysterious after all. But hey, if you want to hear the real story of a different extreme environment, click right here to learn about what life is really like inside a volcano.